He had paid for the ticket like everyone else. Same price, same seat, same right to be there. But when he stepped into first class, the cabin went silent. Eyes turned. Whispers followed. The flight attendant smiled, but it wasn't the kind that welcomed. It was the kind that measured. Within minutes, they told him to move, that maybe he was lost, that this seat wasn't for him. He didn't argue. He just looked at them once. And what he said next changed the tone of that entire flight. Because that day, they didn't just judge a passenger, they misjudged a man who owned the sky itself. For years, Marcus Bennett had lived a life that blended quiet discipline with quiet pride. A self-made entrepreneur, the kind who built his empire from late nights and early mornings, he wasn't used to special treatment, but he had earned respect. That morning, he was on his way to a business summit across the country, dressed in a tailored suit, holding nothing but his laptop bag and the calm confidence of someone who had worked for every inch of his success. At the airport, people passed him without notice, until he stepped into the first-class line. The glances began, soft at first, then sharper. A woman behind the counter double-checked his ticket twice. Marcus smiled anyway. He was used to these moments. But as he boarded the plane and took his seat near the window, he felt that familiar silence, the kind that doesn't welcome, only waits. Something was about to happen on that flight, and deep down, Marcus knew it wouldn't be about the seat. It would be about who was sitting in it. The moment the seatbelt sign blinked off, Marcus felt it, the weight of eyes that refused to look away. He turned slightly, pretending to adjust his watch, and caught the narrow stare of the man across the aisle. A few rows behind, a woman whispered something that made another passenger smirk. He didn't need to hear the words. He'd heard them 100 times before, in boardrooms, in lobbies, in places where people smiled while quietly questioning if he truly belonged. The flight attendant came down the aisle with the practiced grace of someone who'd done this for years. Her smile stopped short when she reached Marcus. "Sir," she began, her tone smooth but sharp, "are you sure you're in the right seat?" Marcus looked up. Calm, steady. "Yes, seat 2A. He held out his ticket, the gold letters of first class glinting in the cabin light. She hesitated, scanning the ticket as if searching for an error that wasn't there. "Of course," she said finally, forcing a smile. "Just checking," but her voice carried, and that was the point. People nearby looked up from their magazines, their eyes flicking from his face to his seat, like detectives searching for evidence of something that didn't fit. Minutes passed, but the tension didn't fade. When the attendant returned with drinks, she skipped his row. A small thing, petty but deliberate. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply opened his laptop and began typing, trying to focus on the presentation he'd deliver the next morning. But focus was impossible when every breath carried judgment. Across the aisle, the man who'd been staring finally spoke, his voice low but edged with mock politeness. "You must be lost, friend." "Coach is back there." Marcus closed his laptop. "No," he said quietly, "I'm exactly where I should be." That answer didn't sit well. The man chuckled, shaking his head like someone watching a child tell a lie. "Sure you are." The attendant appeared again, her smile tighter now. "Sir, I need to see your ticket one more time. There seems to be a mix-up." A ripple of murmurs ran through the cabin. The couple 2 rows ahead turned in their seats, curious. Marcus could feel the weight of every glance pressing down on him like gravity. He handed her the ticket again, this time slower. "Maybe the mix-up," he said, "isn't with the ticket." The air went still. She didn't reply, just nodded curtly and walked away. But the damage was done. The looks, the whispers, the unspoken suspicion, they filled every inch of that luxury cabin. He leaned back, exhaling through his nose, fighting the familiar exhaustion that came from moments like this. He had fought his way through doors people tried to close, earned titles they said weren't his, and built a company from scratch. And yet, here he was, being treated like a trespasser in a space he had already paid for. The flight continued, but peace never returned. Every small thing became a test. His drink took twice as long to arrive. His request for a blanket was forgotten. Even the pilot's casual announcement, "We'd like to welcome all our first-class guests," seemed to echo a question that wasn't meant to be asked but was felt by everyone around him. Then came the final blow. The same attendant returned, this time with another uniformed staff member. "Sir," she said softly, "we've been informed there may have been a booking issue. Could you please come with us to verify your seat?" It was polite on the surface, but everyone could hear what it really meant. Stand up. Prove you belong. Marcus looked around the cabin, every eye waiting for his reaction, every smirk ready to turn into a headline. He stood slowly, buttoning his suit jacket, the kind of quiet motion that carries dignity sharper than any words. "Of course," he said. "Let's clear this up." As he followed them toward the front of the plane, he felt the chill of humiliation crawl up his spine. But beneath it, something else stirred. Resolve. This wasn't going to end with him being escorted away, not this time, because the moment they reached the front, the entire crew and every passenger pretending not to watch was about to learn who Marcus Bennett really was. The aisle felt longer than ever as Marcus walked toward the front of the plane. Conversations dimmed. The hum of the engines filled the silence that prejudice had built. Every step was a spotlight, every breath a reminder of what it felt like to be judged before you even spoke. The attendant led the way, her heels clicking like a countdown. The supervisor followed close behind, holding a clipboard as if it were evidence. At the cabin door, she turned to him. "Sir, we just need to confirm your reservation. If you could wait here." But Marcus didn't wait. He'd spent a lifetime waiting, for fairness, for respect, for people to see him beyond his skin. Not this time. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out his phone with quiet precision. The attendant stiffened as if expecting confrontation. Instead, Marcus scrolled calmly, his fingers sure. "You said there's a mix-up," he said, voice even but heavy with restrained fire. "Let's find out where." He tapped once, and the speakerphone came alive. A voice answered, firm, professional, familiar. "Mr. Bennett? Are you in the air already?" The attendant froze. The supervisor blinked. The name hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Marcus turned the phone slightly so the passengers behind him could hear. "Yes, I am," he said evenly. "I'm calling from Flight 217. There seems to be confusion about my seat." The voice on the phone carried a calm authority. "Confusion? That's odd. You own the company that chartered that flight." The words hit like thunder. The flight attendant's face drained of color. The supervisor took a step back, his clipboard trembling slightly. From the first-class rows, a few passengers craned their necks, pretending not to listen but unable to look away. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at them, each one who had doubted him, and said quietly, "Sometimes the problem isn't the ticket. It's the assumption behind it." For a long second, no one moved. The attendant tried to speak, but the words wouldn't form. "Sir, I didn't realize—" Marcus ended the call and slipped the phone back into his jacket. "You didn't have to," he said. "That's the point." The captain himself appeared then, drawn by the whispers and tension. "Is there an issue here?" he asked, glancing between the trembling staff and the composed man in the suit. Marcus met his eyes. "There was," he said, "but I believe it's been cleared up." The captain nodded slowly, sensing more than he understood. "Of course, Mr. Bennett. Please take your seat. And my apologies for the misunderstanding." The walk back to seat 2A was silent, but seismic. Every passenger watched him pass, their faces a mix of shock, guilt, and the quiet kind of respect that only comes after realization. Marcus didn't meet their eyes. He didn't need to. The truth was louder than anything he could say. When he sat down, he opened his laptop again, hands steady now. The flight attendant approached, voice trembling, offering him a drink she'd skipped before. He didn't look up. "Thank you," he said softly, "but I'm fine." She hesitated, then whispered, "I'm sorry." He closed the laptop just enough to look at her. His gaze wasn't cruel, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from a lifetime of having to prove what should already be obvious. "I know," he said. "I've heard that before." As she walked away, Marcus turned toward the window. The clouds drifted by, endless and calm. Somewhere above them, sunlight stretched wide across the sky, limitless, borderless, blind to color. When the plane landed, no one moved right away. It was as if the entire cabin was waiting for Marcus to stand first, to see what dignity looked like after humiliation. He gathered his things with the same calm he'd carried through the storm, nodding politely to the crew that had once doubted him. The same flight attendant who had questioned his right to be there now held the door open, her voice soft, her eyes lowered. Marcus didn't gloat, didn't offer a speech. He simply said, "Next time, don't look for proof, just look at people." And then he walked out into the terminal, his steps steady, his head high. But inside, he felt that quiet ache, the knowledge that no matter how high he climbed, there would always be someone trying to remind him where they thought he belonged. News of the incident spread quietly. A few passengers posted online, not about the owner who humbled a crew, but about the man who carried himself with grace when others offered none. Some called it inspiring, others called it unbelievable. But Marcus knew what it really was, a reminder that progress isn't comfort. It's confrontation, because racism doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in politeness. It hides behind procedures, behind smiles, behind just checking. And every time someone like Marcus endures it in silence, another story like this one begins to write itself somewhere else. He looked out the terminal window at the departing planes, machines soaring effortlessly through skies still divided on the ground. And he wondered, how many more times will people have to prove their worth before the world finally stops asking for proof? This wasn't just about a seat on a plane. It was about a place in humanity, and who still gets questioned for having one.